So,
Okay,
here we are.
welcome back. Day 4
4?
of the 42 days of magical practice.
1/10 coming up.
Yeah. And today we are talking about observation of your mind.
Key to many, many things.
And I think before we get into it, it's important to state that obviously we're going to be covering a lot of ground in these 42 days.
Right.
And, not to feel like you need to get everything done perfectly on time.
Right.
I mean, we did design it in a specific order,
Right.
but just that, things can be continued to continued to be worked on, and,
Well,
be taken
things
deeper
come up,
over
right?
time.
Life happens.
Yeah.
So stuff happens, and it's not. I'm not concerned that you go off track. I'm concerned and happy when you get back on track. So that's my focus. Is more that things happen, things come up. You miss a day, or you do something else. Or something else has to be done. I mean, we've all had to pull all-nighters. We've all had to sit up with sick children. We've all had to do these other things. Again, this is reality for most of us. Spirituality for people with a life. We have other things going on at the same time. This is extremely important. This is not isolation or a hobbyist type of mentality where it's a weekend warrior thing, right? I play tag football on the weekend or whatever it is. That's for fun. This is something that you're going to incorporate as your life, as a part of your lifestyle. And that's the idea. So don't expect that it's going to be perfect all the time, and that it's just going to be, you're going to have this little nook that's carved out every single day exactly the same way. That's just crap. It doesn't happen. And you don't want it to happen. Yeah. Because it shows an inflexibility of mind and of your ability to adjust on the fly. It's another one of those characteristics that I find lacking in many esoteric practitioners. That they're just so friggin' rigid, and when they're espousing some kind of fluidness that just isn't there in their practice, they're more rigid than people that just go to service on whatever day of the week they go on, and that's it. That's all they do, and they're on target with that, but on nothing else. So it's like this world is a fluid world. So if you want to engage it on a level that's more than, then you're going to have to become as fluid as it is and move within it. That's the idea. So things happen. The bottom line is, don't worry. If you missed something or you didn't quite complete it or whatever, it's no problem. Pick up where you left off, get that part done, move into this next section, and do it from there. There's no problem with that. We're just doing it short because we have other things we need to do, right? So we're holding our own toes to the fire of, get this done and, put these 42 videos out so that people can experience something, magic in their lives, in a very effective way, with a minimum of fuss. So, but you have to do it. That's the hardest. You have to actually do the practice in order to get the results. Otherwise, it's just one more video game or whatever. So, and even that you have to play in order to get through the levels, right? So you can't just mentally go through the levels. Right, or that's not very fun, or,
Yeah.
I'll sell you a game for that, it's no problem.
Right.
So just do it and see the end results that you get.
So the next technique that we're going to do
is basically observation. So observing your mind, the way that your mind works, the way that your conscious mind works. So and we should be very explicit about that it's, we're basically observing the way your conscious process works. Your subconscious, we need to build a bridge to get into that. So,
which we're going to
talk about later. Yeah, because we have to, let's deal with what we know first. And that's the way that we respond to life every day, how we interact with people and things and situations in our lives. And that's our conscious mind. We do that. The subconscious is running constantly in the background, these programs that are just sort of running. And a lot of times people are just, they're just going through the motions. They're not really aware of what's happening. And so, that's, again, leads to a lot of things. The first and foremost, it leads to habit, right? So habit, patterning, however you want to call it, hypnotic rhythm, it perpetuates itself. Again, scientifically, we know that after the age 35, most people are thinking 90-something% of all the thoughts they had the day before. So that leaves very little room for new thought. Very little room for new thought each day. And you're repeating those thoughts over and over and over again until they just become unconscious patterns. It's like people who say, "Oh, hey, how are you?" They don't really mean "how are you?" It's become just a greeting. They don't really want to know how you are. I don't have time to know how you are. It's just an automatic response. It's just something they say, but they're not really thinking about the words that they're speaking. So we want to be conscious. We want to become conscious of everything that we're doing, and especially of those hidden patterns that we're just sort of putting into play without even thinking about it. They're just rolling all the time. And so in order to change that, we need to know what they are. Otherwise, we don't know what we're doing, right? We have to have a way to change that pattern, because when we change that pattern, we're changing the energetic structure of what we are, who we are, how we are. And in that moldable state, we can then project in our symbol or whatever it is that we're looking for to change in our life, right? Whatever we want to create is something new, something we want to engage with now. So the first thing is observing it and observing the mind for those patterns. How does my mind work? And again, it is a simple process, not easy, but a simple process, right? I just sit in a quiet place. If it's hard to find a quiet place, I would suggest, and we'll mention these things because I don't care about, I have no affiliation at this point with any products or anything like that. So I'm just going to say what we use, some of the things that we use that are easy. And most people have a cell phone or something like that, and these are free. So there's no price involved, right? So there's nothing to hold you back from doing this. I find, my personal preference, but I find that, some people like white noise or pink noise or all these technical things, but rain is one of those things that I've always found to be, levels the playing field. So if you have a hard time finding a quiet space, or your apartment is too small, or there's other people in it, or whatever, how do you, in the beginning, block that out? First of all, you can do it at odd times when people aren't up and around, right? So later at night, or, early in the morning. I get up early to do it. These are wonderful times to, initiate that for a number of reasons, which we'll get into, but the idea is that those are great times to do it. But still, you could be living in the city where there's city noise or traffic noise or whatever's going on. So that constant sort of rain, pattering, on the outside, more intense or less intense, higher or lower in volume with headphones or earbuds or whatever, will help to sort of neutralize that. It may not eliminate it completely, but it'll neutralize it, and your brain's going to entrain to that resonance of that flow, and that's where you want to be. So I use that to sort of give myself, that sense of isolation from my normal world for 10 minutes or whatever it is that we do the exercise.
And I have to say, I was very resistant to using something like that for a long time because I always felt like, meditation had to be, no, not even that it's crutch, more like, man, it's not, you're supposed to do it in silence, or you're supposed to do it without these devices or anything like that. But but even something very simple like rain, I've found for me where I live right now, it really is very helpful, and it helps me get more focused when I'm doing my stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, one of the ideas that I tend to promote with all students is that, look, we don't live in the Middle Ages. We don't live in Egypt in, BC times, right? We don't live in those eras. We don't even live in the 1800s. So it's like the practices have to evolve.
Right.
I'm as traditional as the next person, but I'm telling you, one of the biggest lessons I've learned is, again, in flexibility, is don't be married to, to the principle. Yes, keep the principle. Breaking the principle will definitely have not good results for you, but the parameters around that, the little intricacies, the ins and outs of it, that has to evolve. We have more information and different information than they had even 50 years ago. And they're still using practices from 2,000 years ago. Not that there's anything wrong with those practices, but again, how do I modify them to reflect my understanding of the world now? My understanding of the world now is different than it was back then, right? So we have to evolve the practice. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not a sacrilege to do.
Yeah.
It's got to be very clear that this is the case. And the people that do that and have that idea, that they are going to evolve the practices, they're doing much better than those people who are mired in doing it exactly this way, the way it was done by Agrippa and or whoever, So it's like, sorry, you're not going to find half of the things that were readily available back then to do the things that you're supposed to do now. So what do? Just don't do it? What do you do? You can't do that anymore. So it's like you have to evolve. You have to evolve. People are evolving.
Let alone understanding either the language that it was written in or the culture of that time, the meaning of the words, all that kind of stuff.
And it's not to dismiss them. They did great things, and they did write down, especially those masters, did write down, very concise principles that still stand today, obviously. Principles don't change, right? But the methods around them have to evolve, just like people have to evolve, right? So, and we know that to be true in all things, from medicine, in different areas of science, engineering, to just everything. Why would you think that this would be something that wouldn't? It doesn't make any sense. But I digress.
I think whenever it comes to anything spiritual or religious, we strongly feel that there's a right way to do things and a wrong way to do things, and and certainly so, like you said, in terms of principle, but I think you have to know that the main point is what works.
Right. For you.
For you.
Right. There is no one way. There's only a way for you. And that may even change over time, right? If you're evolving, your practice will evolve with you, right? So it's like, don't be married to some idea that's supposed to be. Be married to the things that work. Be married to the end result being consistent. Be married to that. Make that your favorite. Right?
Yeah.
And then, everything else around it is flexible and malleable. It has to be. We were considered to be the flexible thinkers and, people that could think outside the box way back when. And somewhere along the way in the last 100 years or so, that has gone away, right? It's become this very regimented, you don't get to get in, you don't know the special handshake, you can't get past this thing, or you don't have enough money, or you don't belong to this group, or whatever.
Or you're not at this level.
You're not at this level, whatever the hell that means. So it's like, as far as I'm concerned, the only level that needs to be, where anybody needs to be is where they can change their situation, make things happen consistently and convert into something that, works for you, changing your life situation or, when you can, that of somebody else. That's all, right? So observation, getting back to the point,
a
little digression, just a little rant. It happens with me.
Yeah.
You know that. Your job is to reel me back in.
I'm trying.
That's the deal, okay? Otherwise, I have no use for you. Okay, so.
Except my profile,
That's
which
right.
is beautiful.
I have to do that, okay? So, anyway. So back to observation. So we have to, the process again is simple but not easy.
Yeah.
So you'll hear that a lot, but it really is. So I'm, putting myself in a isolated space, whether it's contrived, which it is most times for us in modern times, or I do have a space that, I'm fortunate enough to have a space where I can isolate myself and be there by myself and not be distracted by other things. And so I'm just resting in that. I'm finding a comfortable position. Some people would call it an asana, or in the yogic terms, I would imagine. And but it could be anything really. Like you should be able to reproduce this in a number of different ways. But start with one that's consistent for you. And almost all practices, have a the one thing that's the same with all of them, no matter what position you're using, is that your back is straight.
Mm-hmm.
That's really where it ends. It begins and ends in that one thing. Your back is straight. Whether you're lying on the floor, whether you're sitting up, legs crossed, legs flat on the floor, or feet flat on the floor, standing, and everything in between. Find one that's comfortable for you. There's no one that is better than any other. Again, it's what you produce with that. And you may find that you change over time. In the end, I can tell you that at different stages, you should be able to do this in almost, any of those, let's say, generic 3 positions: sitting, lying down, and standing.
Mm-hmm.
But in the beginning, sit. It's going to be more comfortable for you. And the only reason I pick sit over lying down is because there is an association with lying down and sleeping. So it's going to be much easier for you to fall asleep. Remember, the mind works by associating things with things that it knows. So, and lying down, usually we're resting to the point of sleep. So in order to negate that a little bit, at least in the beginning, till you get really used to it and you can keep your mind awake and your body relaxed, then sitting position is the best to do that, I feel. Just my personal opinion on that. So, but it can be any type of sitting. I tend to sit, I learned on a bench, so for me that's comfortable. Bench, feet flat on the floor, not crossed, hands on my legs, and I'm present. My back is straight, my neck is straight, everything is there, but I also can relax my body fully from that position, and that's fine. But if you have a chair that's comfortable for you with a back, and that's good for you, that's great. Again, I'd be a little cautious with a recliner, only because you're sort of in that middle stage. If it's reclined, it's almost being lying back, so you could go to sleep easier.
But again, that important point of not feeling like you are about to fall asleep or getting sleepy or
right. If that's the case, then we'll tell you what to do about that. And it is not pleasant, but no, it's not too bad. Don't worry. So again, observation. I'm gonna just relax in my position, relax my body a little bit, and I mean a little bit. So we'll go into a whole thing about how to properly go through training your body to relax. But for right now, just give your body the command to relax, and relax the body. And you're just basically closing your eyes again, negating the sense of sight, and you have your rain going, or you're in an isolated place, and so that's quiet. And then from there, I'm just sort of letting my mind wander. That's all it is. It does it pretty freely. So for most people,
no problem.
No problem. You have that down already. You are perfect in that. You're a master of letting your mind wander. Awesome. So I can pretty much guarantee 99.9999% of you can do that perfectly. So I close my eyes.
My mind's just still. I don't know. There's just nothing. It's a blank slate.
It's nothing. It's nothing. Nothing is coming. So there's it. So it's going. The monkey mind, whatever you want to call it, the thoughts are coming and going, random stuff. And the idea is that you're just observing the thoughts. You're just observing. You see them come, you have them there, you acknowledge them, and you let them go. And you're not going to try to push them away. You're not going to try to deflect them or stop them. That's just going to feed that more and more. So the idea is just to acknowledge it and let it go. And you're basically getting to the point where you're pulling away to the point where you're sensing that an aspect of you is observing that thought process going on in another aspect of you. So there is that sense. It may not happen the first time, may not even happen the second time, but sooner or later you're going to feel slowly that you get glimpses of there's an aspect of you that is basically watching your mind and the thinking that's going on in your mind. That's the place where you want to be, because then, that observer has, and this will help that, and this point will help that to happen quicker, is that observer has no judgment about what's going on with that. But you'll notice the sense. It's an odd sense at first, and you'll get glimpses of it, but then you want to extend that more and more, right? So that I'm just observing, I see the thought come in, oh, it's the checkbook, blah, blah, blah. And before I have a chance to let it run, I just let it go. It just floats away or moves away. And then the next thing, oh, I've got to get milk the next thing. Oh, okay, let it go. I acknowledge it and I let it go and don't kind of follow that train of thought. I'm just observing, and that's it. And do that. When you can get to 10 minutes where you have that, you're in a good space, Write down your observations with the primary idea, and this, again, may not come right away, but just write down what you know. You don't have to write down every thought. It's just sort of like the patterns. If there are patterns that you see, like, wow, it seems like 80% of my thoughts were about finances, or 80% of my thoughts were about food, or 80% of my thoughts were about sex, whatever it is, just write it down. If you notice a pattern, write it down, because it will give you an idea, sort of a different non-judgmental view of, how your mind is functioning, where it is, how does it work, basically, without any kind of restrictions. And that'll give you some deep insight as to what's going on with you and what you're going to need to do later to sort of focus that energy into something else. So, and that's what we do for that first step. Again, simple, but not easy.
Right.
And just and stick with it. There's nothing other than that, sit quietly and do that. And then just a few simple lines. Don't, and it's a good place to say, I personally, I wouldn't make a big chore out of the journaling. It's like a few simple lines if you have them. If you don't, you just write in like, nothing happened, or, I couldn't really come up with anything, or, I didn't notice any pattern, or whatever it is. That's fine. Write it down. So each time, so it's a record basically of what, my journals look like lab books, because that's what I'm used to. So they're, title, date, time, and just bing, 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 bullet points of what it is. Unless there's something really amazing, and then I'm writing it out. But it's not very often. Okay, so they're really just. I think you should be able to get your journal done in less than 5 minutes. For me, I mean, I'm probably more like 2.
Right.
Yeah. It's just like very quick. You don't want to make it one more tedious thing that you have to do. The idea is that save your energy for those things that are going to have the most impact. And again, the journal is extremely important, but you don't want to make it a chore. If you want to write more, by all means, write more. But But if it's not, if it's just a ledger of, keeping track of how you're progressing, that's all it is. You don't have to make it into, it's not going to be a novel.
Yeah.
So, and that's it. Simple and effective.
So again, 5-10 minutes.
5-10 minutes, I know people say they can't meditate. Don't even think of this as a meditation. It's literally an observation. You're just, closing your eyes, putting yourself in a quiet place, and just watching the way your thoughts move in and out of your mind, whatever they are. That's it, without judgment.
And it's hard enough, so let's keep it simple.
Let's keep it simple. Right. There'll be more that is built off of that, so which we're going to get to.
Yeah, and if we don't have a strong foundation, then...
If we don't know where the baseline is, we don't know what to correct or what to adjust, basically. It's not even a correction, it's just an adjustment, right?
Because again, like when I think about this exercise, it's like I can hear even a part of me that's like, oh, that's so simple. Oh, I've meditated for years. Oh, the whole thing. It's like, so I just... I don't know. And yet at the same time, every single time that I do this meditation or take that time of meditation to focus it on observation in its simplest form.
Right.
It's always valuable.
Right.
It's always, enlightening.
And again, for us, people that follow this path in whatever myriad form it may take, right? It's about what is effective. What has value for us in these practices, and discarding what does not have value for us. So those things that we find continual value from, we put more attention on, because it's bringing us treasure. This is stuff that we can use, and and the stuff that doesn't produce anything, I either adjust it, so that it does, or I discard it, and it's just that's not for me, and I move on to something that will produce what I need. Will produce what I want. I mean, we have to be that flexible. We have to, don't carry those sort of, sacred cows around with you, that it's like, oh, it's part of this. I have to do it even though I hate it and it never really does anything for me. It's like, that's bullshit. Get rid of it. Evolve. You're evolving at your own pace, and that may be part of it. Believe me, people, there are things that we do that we may not see an immediate result from, but later on, it's a cog that needs to be there in order for something else to happen. But believe me, those things are not put in place and used for years without seeing any desired result. That's crap. That does not happen. So you need to evaluate all of those things and evaluate them in a realistic way. How does it feel to you? And what am I receiving from this? If it doesn't help me in my everyday life, what the hell good is it? If my practice does not help me every day, it's not worth the time, because it's a lot of work. I could spend that time doing other things that are going to be more productive and help me in my everyday life. That's the bottom line. If your spiritual practice does not help you in everyday life, with the smallest thing to the largest thing, it's not the practice for you. It's supposed to help you right here, right now. You don't get out of your service and go bash the person because they parked too close to your car, unless that's what they're preaching. Then do your worst. So it's like, but if it's not helping you, if you're still flying to a rage over the littlest thing, or you still, all of these things need to be taken into account. It should help your daily existence, help you to maneuver through life. Always have it come back to that. Always, gauge your spiritual practice by your daily existence. This environment, this physical environment, is a perfect mirror of your subconscious. A perfect mirror. What it is what's going on inside of you. So if we take that as a premise, then how you respond to things and what comes up for you is what's inside of you. So if I want to adjust something, I'm not adjusting it from the outside. I'm adjusting it inside. And then looking at the result and seeing how that progresses. Is it moving in the direction I want? I do more of that. If it's not moving in the direction I want, I'm changing it up. Because why would I keep doing the same thing if it's producing the wrong result? I'm not going to do that. Keep betting on Black 14 and I keep losing all my money. I'm not betting on Black 14 anymore, okay? So it's like, or, you get the point. It's like, don't keep doing stuff that isn't producing a result for you. Do the things that are productive and have an effect in your daily world the way that you want them to. Then you're putting your focus where it's well deserved. Find that out. Don't be afraid to find that out. Don't be afraid to plumb the depths of all of these things. There's nothing out there that's, trying to eat you for the sake of finding out, and doing your best and having it produce something grand in your world so that then you can have impact on other people's lives as well. I mean, that's what everyone wants as far as I can see. Anybody I've ever talked to, whether they mean it or not, that's what they say. So I'm going to take them at their word. That's what they want to do. They want to have an impact on their life in a good way so that they can then share that with their family and then their friends and then people that are just interested and want to do the same thing. But you can't do that unless you can do it for yourself first. It's just not possible. Not to the degree that you feel you want to. You need to be in that place first. So, yeah. So on that somber note.
It's not somber, man.
Or my little soapbox for,
it's
for what it is. Then,
it's all good. It's all good.
Then we're moving on. So do your observation. That's the next stage. See. Now remember that you've picked your symbol, you've done all those first chores, right? Those first tasks, and that's great. So remember that even doing that is going to change the way your mind starts to generate thought. And so, it could be very, it could be a high incidence that the symbol that you've chosen or the what you want and why you want it, those things will come into play when you're doing these quiet observations. And so just jot it down if that's the case and know that it will change things. And that's okay because your subconscious is trying to figure a way to put it in a framework to produce the end result that you want, basically. So those are good things to jot down because it solidifies them and you can go back and look at that later and see if things need to be adjusted, where they need to be adjusted, and you have a good record of where that is. And that's it. So good luck. Have fun. Don't make it a task. Make it an adventure. I always find that making it an adventure is, far preferable. Be courageous enough to think, that this will work and that you're going to stumble onto something incredible. It's like when my kids were little and I used to tell them there were dragons around the house. It's like they'd be like, "Oh, Dad," but then I'd see them, sort of sneaking around the corner, looking, just to make sure. So it's like you need to have that childlike attitude going into this. It's simple, it's not easy, but develop that adventurous soul within you. It's maybe been asleep for a long time, but that's what we want. We want to wake that up. It is an adventure if you engage it in that way. And when you engage it in that way, your life will start to pop. And when that happens, there's nothing that's going to turn you around.